The Art of Happiness, a Handbook for Living, by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Howard C. Cutler. Introduction. Imagine for a moment, you're walking through the polished hallways of a luxury hotel. You notice a group of maids, maybe a dozen of them, dressed in their crisp gray and white uniforms. They're not cleaning. They're standing in a line, waiting. Every morning, at the exact same time, they form a receiving line that stretches all the way to the elevators. And every morning, a man in simple maroon and saffron robes walks past them. He's surrounded by staff and security, but he pauses for each one of them. He smiles. He asks a woman where she's from. He chats with another for just a few moments. The interactions are brief, but as he passes, you see their faces light up, flushed with a simple, genuine happiness. That man was the Dalai Lama. The story isn't some grand tale of miracles or divine intervention. It's a quiet, everyday moment. But it holds the entire secret to his teachings, and to the book we're exploring today, The Art of Happiness. This book, a collaboration between one of the world's most revered spiritual leaders and a Western psychiatrist named Howard C. Cutler, isn't just a bestseller that's touched millions of lives. It's a handbook. A practical guide written by a man who lost his country, who has faced immense tragedy and pressure, and yet has found a way to live with a sense of serenity and joy that most of us can only dream of. How does he do it? Is it some mystical secret, available only to monks in the Himalayas? Not at all. What I'm going to share with you today is the profound, yet strikingly simple, discovery that happiness isn't something you find. It's not something you achieve or earn. It is a skill. A discipline. It's something you can train your mind to create, right here, right now, no matter your circumstances. By the end of our time together, you will understand the fundamental purpose of your life, and you will hold the key to unlocking a state of happiness that doesn't depend on luck, or money, or what other people think of you. It's a happiness that comes from within, and it can never be taken away. So, let's begin. Book summary. What is the purpose of your life? It's a huge question, isn't it? We spend so much of our time chasing things: good grades, a spot on the team, the right college, the perfect job. But why? If you trace all of those desires back to their source, you'll find one simple, universal answer. The Dalai Lama starts with this foundational truth: the very purpose of our life is to seek happiness. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. Whether you believe in a religion or not, whether you're rich or poor, every single thing we do, every motion in our life, is a movement towards happiness and away from suffering. A psychiatrist, Howard Cutler, once asked the Dalai Lama a very direct question: "Are you happy?" The Dalai Lama answered without hesitation. Yes, definitely. There was a quiet sincerity in his voice that left no doubt. But for most of us, happiness feels elusive, random. It's like a sunny day that just happens. The word happy even comes from an old Icelandic word, hap, which means luck or chance. We think of happiness as something that comes from the outside. A big win. A new car. A perfect relationship. But have you ever noticed how fleeting that feeling is? A few years ago, a study looked at lottery winners. These people had just won millions of dollars, their wildest dreams come true. And for a while, they were ecstatic. But after the initial high wore off, something strange happened. They returned to their old baseline level of happiness. The new house and the fancy vacations just became normal. Now, consider the opposite. Around the same time, another study looked at people who had suffered catastrophic events, like becoming paralyzed. After an initial period of devastation, they too eventually returned to their previous level of happiness. One of the most powerful examples of this is the actor Christopher Reeve. After a horse riding accident left him paralyzed from the neck down, he admitted that at first, he felt complete despair. But that feeling passed. He later said he considered himself a lucky guy. How? He said, "I realized that the only way to go through life is to look at your assets, to see what you can still do." He couldn't use his body, but he still had his mind. He still had his family. These stories reveal the first major lesson of the book. Happiness is determined more by our state of mind than by external events. Our circumstances, good or bad, don't have the final say. Our outlook does. So if external things don't bring lasting happiness, where does our dissatisfaction come from? A lot of it comes from what the Dalai Lama calls the comparing mind. We're always measuring ourselves against something else. We feel happy when our income jumps from $20,000 a year to $30,000. But that happiness doesn't last, because soon we get used to it and start thinking, "I'd be really happy if I made $40,000. We look at our neighbor's new car and suddenly our own feels old and worn out. Professional athletes earning millions of dollars a year complain because a teammate is making a few million more. This constant comparison breeds envy and frustration. It's a game you can never win, because there will always be someone who has more. But here's the fascinating part. You can use this same principle in a positive way. Instead of comparing yourself to those who have more, you can increase your satisfaction by reflecting on all that you do have. By comparing yourself to those less fortunate. Researchers did a fascinating experiment. They asked one group of people to complete the sentence, "I wish I were a..." After repeating this, the subjects felt more dissatisfied with their lives. But they asked another group to complete the sentence, "I'm glad I'm not a..." And those people experienced a distinct rise in their feelings of life satisfaction. It's all about perspective. This points to the central message of the entire book. We have, right now, at this very moment, all the basic equipment we need to achieve complete happiness. That equipment is our mind. The Dalai Lama explains that when he says training the mind, he's not just talking about our intellect or our ability to think. He's using the Tibetan word sem, which is much broader. It means something closer to our spirit or psyche. It includes our heart and our mind, our feelings and our thoughts. So, how do we train this mind? The process is simple and logical. First, you identify the mental states that lead to happiness, and the ones that lead to suffering. Second, you gradually work to eliminate the factors that cause suffering, and you cultivate the ones that lead to happiness. That's the way. It's not about some externally imposed moral code that says anger is a sin or greed is evil. It's much more practical. The Dalai Lama categorizes emotions as positive or negative based on a simple question: does it ultimately lead to your happiness? Hatred, jealousy, and anger are negative states of mind. Why? Because they destroy our inner peace. When you're filled with hatred, the whole world seems hostile. You become fearful, insecure, and lonely. On the other hand, mental states like kindness, compassion, and warmth are positive. Why? Because they automatically open an inner door. They allow you to connect with others more easily. When you feel warmth for others, you see that all human beings are just like you. The need to hide things disappears, and with it, feelings of fear and self-doubt fade away. This seems simple enough. So why are so many of us unhappy? Because, as the Dalai Lama says, bringing about a transformation in your outlook isn't a simple matter. It takes time. And it takes effort. He says, genuine change doesn't happen overnight. He compares it to adapting to a new climate. Your body needs time. In the same way, transforming your mind takes time. It's a process of learning, of constant battle within, replacing old, negative habits with new, positive ones. This isn't just a philosophical idea. It's grounded in modern science. Neuroscientists call it brain plasticity. Our brains are not fixed. The wiring can change. Every time you have a new thought or repeat a new behavior, you are physically reconfiguring the neural circuits in your brain. By deliberately selecting and focusing on positive mental states, you are literally reshaping your mind. So, the idea of training the mind for happiness becomes a very real, tangible possibility. This training begins with a foundational shift in how we see ourselves and others. The Dalai Lama holds a fundamental belief that the basic, underlying nature of human beings is gentleness and compassion. This might sound naive in a world filled with conflict and aggression. Many Western thinkers, from Hobbes to Freud, have argued that humans are inherently selfish and aggressive. But the Dalai Lama disagrees. He believes that anger and violence arise on a more superficial level, often when we are frustrated in our efforts to achieve love and affection. They are not our core nature. He bases this on simple observation. Our very survival begins with an act of affection. As babies, we need milk from our mother or a caregiver. That act cannot happen without a mutual feeling of warmth and connection. Our physical bodies themselves seem to be built for compassion. A calm, affectionate state of mind is good for our health, while feelings of anger and fear are destructive. If our essential nature is gentle, then our path to happiness lies in reclaiming that state. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who we truly are. And the primary tool for this return is compassion. This brings us to one of the most powerful and transformative sections of the book, deepening our connection with others. Howard Cutler, the co-author, once asked the Dalai Lama a very personal question: "Do you ever get lonely?" The Dalai Lama's answer was a simple, "No." Cutler was stunned. He had assumed everyone feels lonely sometimes. He never expected to meet someone who never felt that way. How was it possible? The Dalai Lama explained that it comes from his attitude. "I think one factor is that I look at any human being from a more positive angle. I try to look for their positive aspects. This attitude immediately creates a feeling of affinity, a kind of connectedness." He went on to say that the key to this is realizing the usefulness of compassion. Once you understand that compassion isn't some sentimental, childish emotion, but something truly worthwhile, you develop an attraction to it. And when you approach others with a thought of compassion, your attitude automatically changes. Fear is reduced. An openness is created. He says that too often, we wait for the other person to be friendly first. We wait for them to make the first move. But he believes that's wrong. We must take the initiative ourselves to create the possibility of receiving affection. This simple shift, from passively waiting to actively creating connection, is the antidote to loneliness. This idea of connection runs deeper than just overcoming loneliness. It challenges our entire cultural obsession with fierce independence. We pride ourselves on being self-reliant. But the Dalai Lama points out that this is a complete illusion. Think about the shirt you're wearing right now. How many people were involved in making it? The farmer who grew the cotton. The people who built the tractor the farmer used. The people who mined the ore to make the metal for the tractor. The workers who spun the cotton, wove the cloth, dyed it, sewed it. The people who transported it, the salesperson who sold it. When you really think about it, you realize that virtually every aspect of your life is the result of the efforts of countless other people. Our lives are deeply interconnected. Recognizing this interdependence is the first step toward feeling a genuine sense of connection and warmth for others. This leads to a new understanding of intimacy. In the West, we often put all our energy into finding that one special person, hoping they will heal our loneliness. But this can be a very limiting viewpoint. The Dalai Lama's model of intimacy is much broader. It's a willingness to open ourselves to many others, to family, friends, and even strangers, forming deep bonds based on our common humanity. He shared that even when he was the leader of Tibet, facing the threat of Chinese invasion, he would return to his rooms and share his deepest fears and worries with the person who swept the floors. From one point of view, it seems silly. But as he explained, personally I feel it is very helpful, because then the other person participates and we can face the problem or suffering together. So how do we build these deeper connections? The Dalai Lama suggests that empathy is a crucial factor. The ability to put yourself in another person's shoes and appreciate their suffering. He says that when he meets people, he always approaches them from the standpoint of the most basic things we have in common. We all have a body, a mind, emotions. We are all born the same way, and we all die. We all want happiness and don't want to suffer. Focusing on these commonalities, rather than on secondary differences like culture, religion, or background, makes it much easier to connect. He also offers a piece of advice that seems almost too simple, but is incredibly powerful. Try to understand the background of the people you are dealing with. Howard Cutler shares a story of meeting a writer at a dinner party who seemed arrogant and unfriendly. Cutler took an immediate dislike to him. But later, a friend explained the writer's background. His family had suffered terribly during World War II, and he had raised 2 children with severe disabilities. Instead of becoming bitter, he had devoted his life to helping others. Armed with this little bit of information, Cutler's entire feeling toward the man changed. When they met again, he made more of an effort, and discovered a warm, genuine human being underneath the shy exterior. A little understanding can completely transform a relationship. Of course, not all of our suffering comes from our relationships. Much of it is an unavoidable part of life. Old age, illness, and death will come to us all. How do we face this? The Dalai Lama's approach isn't to run from suffering or pretend it doesn't exist. That only provides temporary relief. Instead, he says we must confront it directly. He uses the analogy of a battle. If you remain ignorant of your enemy's strength, you will be paralyzed by fear. But if you know their capabilities, you are in a much better position to deal with them. By familiarizing yourself with suffering ahead of time, by contemplating the fact that these things will happen, your mind will be more stable when they do. It's like a military exercise. But what if you confront a problem and find there's no solution? His advice is radical in its simplicity. If a situation can be remedied, then there is no need to worry. The sensible thing to do is to focus your energy on the solution. If, on the other hand, there is no solution, no way out, then there is also no point in worrying, because you can't do anything about it anyway. The sooner you accept that, the easier it will be. This acceptance of suffering as a natural part of life is a key theme. He says if your basic outlook is that suffering is a sign of failure, something that shouldn't be happening, you will add a layer of anxiety and intolerance that makes everything worse. But if you accept suffering as a natural part of existence, it makes you far more tolerant of life's adversities. This doesn't mean it's a pessimistic view. In Buddhism, the reason reflection on suffering is so important is because there is a way out. By understanding suffering, you can develop the resolve to eliminate its root causes, which are identified as ignorance, craving, and hatred. While some suffering is inevitable, a surprising amount of it is self-created. We perpetuate our pain by replaying hurts over and over in our minds. We become overly sensitive, taking minor things too personally and blowing them out of proportion. As the Dalai Lama says, your pain is your own personal creation. If someone speaks badly of you, and you react with hurt or anger, you are the one destroying your own peace of mind. If you can let it pass like a silent wind, you protect yourself from the agony. Another way we create suffering is with a feeling of unfairness. When we feel something is unfair, it consumes us and robs us of the energy needed to solve the actual problem. The Dalai Lama suggests several ways to deal with this. For a Buddhist, it might be the concept of karma. For someone who believes in God, it might be faith in a divine plan. But for a non-believer, he suggests a practical, scientific approach. Look at the problem objectively. Analyze it. You'll often find that there are many factors contributing to a situation, and very often, you yourself are one of them. Our normal tendency is to blame others, to find a single cause and exonerate ourselves. But if we can honestly examine our own contribution, that feeling of unfairness begins to dissolve. This brings us to one of the most difficult challenges, dealing with anger and hatred. The Dalai Lama considers anger and hatred to be the greatest evils, the biggest obstacles to happiness. They are like an internal enemy that has no other function than to destroy our peace of mind. He says that when strong hatred arises, it obliterates the best part of our brain, our ability to judge right from wrong. It's almost like a temporary insanity. So what's the solution? Some Western therapies encourage getting your anger out, but the Dalai Lama believes that, generally, expressing anger only makes it grow. The more you get used to letting it happen, the more powerful it becomes. The true antidote to anger and hatred is the active cultivation of patience and tolerance. This might sound like weakness or passivity, but the Dalai Lama argues the exact opposite. Patience, he says, is a sign of strength. It comes from a deep ability to remain firm and not be overwhelmed by a difficult situation. It involves active restraint, which comes from a strong, self-disciplined mind. Being forced into a passive response out of helplessness isn't genuine tolerance, it's meekness. True tolerance comes from having the capacity to retaliate, but deliberately choosing not to. This doesn't mean you should meekly accept harm. Sometimes, strong countermeasures are necessary. But he believes you can take a strong stand out of compassion, rather than anger. You might do it to prevent the other person from continuing a harmful pattern that will ultimately destroy them. Through patience and tolerance, forgiveness comes naturally. The past is past. Continuing to feel anger doesn't change what happened, it only causes your own continued unhappiness. Forgetting and forgiving are two different things. You may always remember the event, but with patience, you can let go of the negative feelings associated with it. Finally, how do we build the self-confidence needed to make these changes? It's easy to be plagued by anxiety, fear of failure, or feelings of low self-worth. The Dalai Lama's antidote to these feelings is simple but profound: honesty and a sincere motivation. When you are honest, with yourself and with others, about what you are and are not capable of, you have less fear. There's no anxiety about being exposed. The more honest you are, the more self-confident you will be. And when it comes to your actions, if your motivation is sincere, if you are motivated by a genuine wish to help, based on kindness and compassion, you can function more effectively with less fear or worry. Even if you fail, you can feel good about having made the effort. But with a bad motivation, even if you succeed, you still won't be happy. Ultimately, all of these practices, training the mind, cultivating compassion, facing suffering, and overcoming negative emotions, are part of what the Dalai Lama calls living a spiritual life. But he makes a crucial distinction. There are two levels of spirituality. The first has to do with religious belief. He deeply respects all major religions and believes each person should find the path that suits them best. But there is a second level of spirituality that he considers even more important. He calls it basic spirituality. These are the basic human qualities of goodness, kindness, compassion, and caring. Whether we are believers or non-believers, these qualities are essential. Without them, human existence is hard and dry. True spirituality, he says, is not about external things like wearing certain clothes or reciting prayers. It's a mental attitude you can practice at any time. It's the inner discipline of taming your own mind and translating that tamed state into your daily actions. That is the essence of a happy life. Commentary. As we come to the end of our journey through the art of happiness, what strikes me the most is how radically it challenges our modern, Western idea of what happiness is. We're taught, almost from birth, that happiness is a destination. It's something out there that we need to chase. It's the reward we get after we achieve the next goal, the graduation, the promotion, the perfect relationship. We live in a culture of "I'll be happy when," but as this book so clearly shows, that when never truly arrives. The goalposts are always moving. The Dalai Lama turns this entire model on its head. He teaches us that happiness is not a destination, it's a state of being. It's not something you find, it's something you cultivate. It's a skill, like learning to play a musical instrument or speak a new language. It requires practice, determination, and time. This is, I believe, the most powerful and liberating idea in the entire book. It means that our happiness is not held hostage by our circumstances. It's not dependent on our boss, our partner, our bank account, or the state of the world. It is our own responsibility, and it is always within our reach. In a world that often feels chaotic, divided, and stressful, this message is more relevant than ever. The book offers a practical, grounded alternative to the anxiety and dissatisfaction that plague so many of us. It redefines concepts we thought we understood. Compassion isn't a soft, sentimental feeling. It is a pragmatic tool for building connection and inner strength. Patience isn't weakness. It is the ultimate sign of a disciplined and powerful mind. Spirituality isn't necessarily about religion. It is about cultivating our basic human goodness. The beauty of this book is that it's not an abstract philosophical treatise. It's a handbook. It's filled with concrete techniques, mental exercises, and shifts in perspective that we can apply to our daily lives. So how can you start applying these lessons today? Let me offer just a few simple actions inspired by the book. First, the next time you feel a wave of unhappiness, frustration, disappointment, or sadness, pause for just a moment and ask yourself, is my suffering coming from this external event, or is it coming from my state of mind, from my reaction to it? Just asking that question can create a small space, a moment of awareness, that can begin to change everything. Second, try this simple exercise in shifting perspective. The next time you find yourself angry or irritated with someone, make a genuine effort to find just one positive quality about them, or one alternative way of looking at the situation. You don't have to suddenly like them or approve of their actions. The goal is simply to break out of the narrow, 100% negative view that anger creates. You might be surprised at how much this small act can diffuse the intensity of your feelings. And finally, start your day with a simple intention. You don't need to spend 4 hours in prayer like the Dalai Lama. Just take 30 seconds when you wake up to remind yourself of your basic desire to be happy and to remind yourself that others feel the same way. Set a simple intention to be just a little bit kinder, a little more patient, or a little more aware throughout your day. This small act of reminding can begin to slowly, gently, retrain your mind. The path to happiness is not a quick fix. It is a lifelong journey. But it is a journey that is available to every single one of us. It begins not with changing our world, but with changing our minds. That was a summary of The Art of Happiness by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Howard C. Cutler. We've touched on the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The true magic happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase resonates with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've talked about today has sparked something within you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning new information, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself, others, and your daily life. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, please do me a small favor and hit that like button. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the world's most successful minds. Let's keep growing together.